Good afternoon and good morning to those joining us out west. I'm Karen Kabolis with the National Emergency Management Association, and I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Speed Prep with FEMA ICPD, Making the Connection to Preparedness Resources. Thank you for being with us today, and it's my pleasure to introduce our presenters. Matt Lyttle is the Acting Deputy Director of FEMA Individual and Community Preparedness Division. In this role, he works to engage national partners in various preparedness initiatives. Christi is Operations Branch Chief of ICPD. Nisah Abdul-Sabur is Financial Preparedness Lead with ICPD. Andy Burrows is the Citizen Responder Lead in the Partnership and Engagement Branch of FEMA's ICPD. Allison Carlock is Acting Partnership and Engagement Branch Chief and National Youth Preparedness Lead for ICPD. Welcome to our speakers. And Matt Lyttle, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Karen, and hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We're very excited to speak to you about ways to prepare the individuals and communities that you serve. As Karen mentioned, ICPD is inside of FEMA. We're the Individual and Community Preparedness Division, and our work revolves around the research and tools needed to build a culture of preparedness within America. So we're going to go through several program offerings that hopefully you can find useful to help build that culture of preparedness within your communities. We're calling this Speed Prep because we'll do a brief introduction through several programs, tools, and resources that you can use right there at home to help build that preparedness. And we'll have some of these various experts speak to you about that. We are going to take a look at the FEMA Strategic Plan. So I'm sure many of you in the emergency management industry have already seen this graphic, and you may find your work aligns with several areas of the strategic plan. Today, we're going to be mostly talking about FEMA Objective 1.3, helping people prepare for disasters. You can see that the strategic goal, the very first one, is building a culture of preparedness. And inside of those green titled objectives, you'll see one on mitigation, another on closing the insurance gap. The fourth has to do with continuous improvement and really learning from what we've done in the past. And then, of course, that one right there, Objective 1.3, helping people prepare for disasters. That's what it's all about. And so many of us are counting on our community members to step up and play a role, not just in the response and recovery of our communities, but also in the preparedness. And we're hoping that this is how this webinar can assist you, is by providing some of these resources that can do exactly that. Great, so many of you are familiar with the National Preparedness Goal. It talks about our need to have a secure and resilient nation in all of the mission areas related to emergency management, and of course, facing an all hazards, all threats environment. And you'll find that many of the programs and offerings that we'll talk about today from ICPD cover these areas. So we'll go through some programs that are applicable no matter the hazards that your community faces. And the other great thing to point out is that the tools that we offer really work for any constituent that you may have within your community, whether that's urban, rural, or suburban, or it's youth, adults, or seniors. We've got stuff for everybody, and we can't wait to share it with you. So here's the National Preparedness System for all of you emergency managers out there. I'm sure you've seen this one before. You know, it's really important that we think about where our resources fit into the National Preparedness System, and particularly this graphic over here. And ICPD works in many of these. We do quite a bit of identification of risk for individuals and for some community level organizations. We help build and sustain capabilities with trainings like the Community Emergency Response Team program or some of our youth program. And then we also can talk about validating and updating capabilities with community engagement based on some of the trainings that we have available. So hopefully you'll also see how these resources can fit into your emergency management programming, no matter what stage you're at or where you are in your preparedness wheel. Great, so the first topic we're going to get into is research. It's so incredibly important that the things we do in the field of emergency management and emergency preparedness are grounded in science, and that we're applying the best practices we can to this kind of work. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Christi, the Operations Branch Chief here at the Individual and Community Preparedness Division, to talk about some of our recent research. Christi?
Sure, thanks, Matt. So as Matt mentioned, research is a really critical part of how we build a solid foundation for all of our preparedness programs. We really do this through two primary ways. We have the National Household Survey, which allows us to take a sample of the state of preparedness across the nation. And then we also use that to create protective actions that identify the best way that we can prevent loss of life and loss of property, and also to prevent injury within a hazard. So if you're looking here at this slide, we've got these nice colorful dots that kind of look like a little bit of a valley. And this is actually the result of one of our first national household surveys done back in 2013. And so for that, we surveyed around 5,000 people. Some of that is a national sample, which really gives us a good picture of kind of the average population within the United States. And then some of that is also specific geographic samples that we do in certain areas that are prone to certain hazards. So, you know, we'll look at locations in California that might be specific to or prone to earthquakes. We might look at places in the Southeast, which are more prone towards hurricanes. And we try and get an assessment from those individuals about how they might be preparing for disasters or hazards that occur in their local community. So one of the really important things that we look at here, this is called the stages of change model. We've got this nice valley in the middle, so preparation is there at the bottom, and that's the 9%. So what we're seeing here is you can kind of picture this as a trajectory that people move across, or a path that individuals move across. So if someone answers questions that indicate to us that they're really in this pre-contemplation stage, which is all the way on the left, that tells us that they really have never thought about preparing for anything. They have no intention to prepare in the next year. On the opposite end of that, the maintenance stage, which we've got in that nice red, those are individuals who are not only fully prepared and have been so for a year or more, but usually those are the individuals who are then helping others within their community to prepare. And so that's why we call it the stages of change, because you move through these individual stages. This is certainly not specific to preparedness, but it's a well-recognized theory of how individuals go through and make changes. Some of the interesting things that we know here from the National Household Survey is that individuals who are in the pre-contemplation stage, we don't see a huge change in that over time. We generally tend to run around this 15 to 20% mark. Whereas those in kind of this contemplation and preparation stage, those individuals tend to have children in the home. They tend to be younger than 44. They usually can often have a lower income. And so that really helps us to understand, okay, what's the audience for individuals who are in this stage? Because the messages that we want to communicate to people when they're in the pre-contemplation stage are very different than those who are in the contemplation or preparation stage. And then, of course, those that are in the action or maintenance stage where they've been prepared for a year or more, maybe they're even helping other individuals, you know, 30% of those are over the age of 65, which makes sense. Those are individuals who have potentially retired and they're looking for ways to engage with their community. Really, individuals between the ages of 18 to 29, only 10% of this latter group was made up of those younger individuals. So it really does trend more to be of the older population in America. So as we start looking into this data, over time, what we're actually starting to see is that this valley is becoming a mountain. And because it's percentages, they all kind of flex upon one another. So it doesn't, just because we might see maintenance reducing in percentage doesn't necessarily mean that the number of people in the maintenance stage is going down. But what we're actually starting to see is this kind of groundswell literally within the preparation stage as that starts to rise up. And that's because of not only the work that FEMA is doing, but of course all the work that all of you are doing to really help all of our communities prepare. Beyond that, we really, as we look further into the data, it starts to give us some insights into what motivates individuals to take action. But as we look at this different information, we're really able to see 4 trending areas that identify what does it take, or what are the actual motivators that encourage people to take these preparedness actions. So the first of these is efficacy, fancy word that basically means confidence. So if you think that it's going to happen, or you think that it's something that you do to prepare is actually going to help when you need that action, then you're more likely to actually do something that you believe in. it's actually fairly common sense, but it's always interesting to see the data really back up that, you know, if you believe that it will help, then you're more likely to do it. The second of these is experience with a hazard. So this one, I think, again, it makes sense. It's always nice when the data tells us something that's logical. So if you've experienced a particular hazard, then you're more likely to prepare for it the next time. This is something that we've been able to leverage in some of our communication products where we allow disaster survivors to be the one to communicate with their own neighbors. And therefore, they're telling their personal story, and it makes it a little bit more powerful because they're hearing from someone that they consider to be a peer. The third of these is the awareness of preparedness information. And this one is really the most, not only the most critical, but also the strongest correlation. So if people have read, seen, or heard something about preparedness, then they are more likely to actually take a preparedness action than those that haven't. And while that seems pretty simple, what this actually means is that strong value in putting the information out there repeatedly, regularly, so that people are seeing it and that they're aware of it. And it's not so much just seeing it one time, but it's actually getting to a point where the frequency of them seeing it and comprehending it is something that it starts to stick, and then they start to think, oh, but would that really help me? And then now we're kind of layering on not only the awareness, but then the efficacy along with it. And the fourth motivator that we've identified within the National Household Survey is the risk perception. And so this is basically that if you think that you're at risk for something, you're more likely to take a preparedness action to protect yourself against that. And knowing that is how we can get to the protective action messaging, which is on the next slide here. And this really helps us to improve how we communicate with individuals. So these protective actions, you'll recall at the beginning I mentioned, are the ways that individuals can prevent loss of life and loss of property. And we have this information available on ready.gov. These are very simple, easy to use, 2-page fact sheets that focus on around 16 different disasters that are most likely in the United States. And they really boil the information down to very, very simple messages. And we do that intentionally because then it helps us to increase awareness, increase the efficacy, help people to understand their risk. And so these are all intentionally designed in a way that touch on those 4 areas that we have from the National Household Survey. Once we know that people have the information, what we'd like to do with the Household Survey is actually use that to tell us, are they actually taking action? And we have been able to see success with that. So we've got, 90% of America has taken at least one preparedness action. And again, that's not just because of the work that FEMA is doing, but because of the collective work. We kind of create the products, and then you all are out there promoting that. Moving beyond protective actions, we really try to think about how we encourage individuals to move across those stages of change. And a lot of the work that we do for that often takes place through our national preparedness programs. So I will pass it on here to Nisah, who can talk about one of our most recent initiatives.
Thank you, Christi. I'm very excited to be here today. The opportunity to present to you is great. Again, I'm Nisah Abdul-Sabur, Financial Preparedness Lead for ICPD. And so today's presentation is going to focus on and give us the opportunity to learn more about what financial preparedness is and why it matters, some of the barriers to financial preparedness, the role of individuals, communities, businesses, and financially preparing the public, and to learn about some proven strategies, tips, and techniques that you can share with your community, with the communities that you serve. So research has shown from the Federal Reserve that cash is king during disaster recovery. People with cash on hand recover faster than those relying on credit. Additionally, in America, we have an epidemic of liquid asset poverty, which is basically a lack of cash available for emergencies and disasters. As you can imagine, this doesn't bode well for recovery. Therefore, we need to improve financial wellness of Americans so that we can in turn build disaster resilience. A recent survey of more than 5,000 individuals conducted by the Federal Reserve revealed that 4 out of 10 Americans said they would not have enough money to cover $400 expense. And results from FEMA's ICPD's 2018 National Household Survey, which Christi briefly mentioned, and it's similar to the Federal Reserve survey, indicates that most people do not have enough money set aside for unexpected $500 emergency. Additionally, property risks are a global challenge. Much of the protection gap is due to uninsured global natural catastrophe risk, which has been rising steadily over the past years. Swiss Re's Sigma data shows that a total economic loss from natural disasters have averaged around 180 billion annually in the last decade, which is roughly 70% billion of that uninsured. Earthquakes, floods, and windstorms are the main threats, particularly in areas of high population and property value concentrations. FEMA's Disaster Relief Program, also known as the Individual and Household Program, I'm sure you guys are familiar with, is designed to coordinate assistance provided to individuals, households, and business recovery from disaster or emergency impact. So what does this slide show us? It shows us that a total of 4.7 million individuals applied for assistance in response to the 2017 hurricane season. That includes Hurricane Harvey, Irma, and Maria. And of these, only about 35% received assistance, both for housing and other needs assistance. The average amount paid for housing assistance was about $4,300, and the average amount paid for other needs assistance was about $1,300. So it's clear that the disaster relief fund provided were small when compared to maximum amounts of the IHP, which is around $30,000 per household. These statistics further underscore the importance of individuals and families preparing financially in the event of an unexpected disaster. So during the month of April, we hosted National Financial Capability Month. We led this. It was a social media campaign that reached the public with practical and actionable tips and resources to improve their financial future. We collaborated with Financial Literacy Education Commission, also known as FLEC, and other financial preparedness subject matter experts, and we generated more than 75 million opportunities to reach the public. One of our recent partnerships is with the Association for Financial Counseling and Planning Education, and we worked on, they worked with us directly to improve financial preparedness. We also hosted some events internal for FEMA employees to learn more about how to prepare for expected and unexpected events. AFCPE focuses on developing training resources and tools for financial professionals who work to educate and help prepare individuals and families, regardless of income, and who may not otherwise have access to this type of information. In cooperation with Operation Hope, FEMA developed the Emergency Financial First Aid Kit in 2004. We revised it in 2018 during National Financial Capability Month. The EFACT is a tool for individuals and families of all income levels and can be ordered in English and Spanish. And it helps to and provides guidance on how to safeguard documents and considered part of the emergency planning process. So this tool you can use in addition to other resources in order to help the folks that you serve prepare. You can visit ready.gov/financial-preparedness to download a copy of the EFACT. So this slide shows the 4 steps that are involved in making sure that individuals are prepared for unexpected events, including safeguarding important documents, saving for a rainy day, establishing a cash reserve, and making sure that they review their insurance coverage. So safeguarding important documents, that's gathering financial, household, medical documents, using the EFACT as a guide to assist in securing those documents. Saving for a rainy day, so making sure we're saving money and maintaining an emergency fund. It's not just good practice, but it puts you in a position to prepare and help others prepare. So setting aside a certain amount of money each month or a paycheck to add to emergency reserve, and also helping with potentially acquiring rental insurance, home insurance, or flood insurance, or securing life-saving items like food, shelter, or water in an emergency. If you visit ready.gov/financial-preparedness, there are more resources there that you can take a look at and see what can help you start that conversation or even use it for your home or your community. Establishing a cash in hand reserve. During disaster, anything can happen: extended power outage, the closing of banking institutions, limited or no access to credit cards and ATMs. So in this case, you want to have some cash on hand that you can use to purchase a variety of goods during an emergency or disaster. Good rule of thumb is to have a mixture of 1s, 5s, and 10s, with the highest being 20, so that you can eliminate the challenges of trying to find change during an emergency. And last but definitely not least, knowing your insurance coverage. Obtaining insurance for your home, apartment, or business property will assist you in repairing, rebuilding, or replacing whatever damages occur during a disaster. So periodically checking your insurance policies, ensuring that your coverage includes floods, earthquakes, water damage, depending on where it is that you live, tornadoes, high winds, etc. Learn more about that at floodsmart.gov. So with the right tools, youth can build a culture of financial preparedness at home and across America. Financial preparedness, as we all know, is not just limited to adults. If we want to build a true culture of preparedness, it starts with our kids. And that means teaching our kids about the value of money from an early age. High school students that are required to take personal financial courses have better on average credit scores and lower debt delinquency rates as young adults. So teaching them early, again, results in better credit scores overall, debit management, debt management, budget strategies, etc. FEMA works with our Youth Preparedness Council and our acting branch chief, Ali Carlock. Carlock will talk more about the YPC Council, but they are currently working on a financial preparedness project, which consolidates their research of how to best communicate to youth about financial preparedness. We used these tips during Financial Capability Month, and they were actually able to present on a webinar and present their research to the community. So we're really excited about that. We have an upcoming 2020 financial preparedness project with the YPC members, and so more to come on that. To learn more about financial preparedness and obtain downloadable versions of the EFACT and some of the other resources that I mentioned, please again visit ready.gov/financial-preparedness. Thank you all for your undivided attention. Now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Andy Burrows. Andy?
Thanks, Nisah. So hopefully by now everybody has seen ways that they can use our research, our programs, or our products to further your own work in your own cities, states, and towns. The item that I would like to discuss with you first about how to further your own work is a program that you may be familiar with, and that is the CERT program. CERT program teaches citizens to respond safely to emergencies. That's light search and rescue, that's fire suppression, that's certain medical operations. But what you might not know is that CERT is tens of thousands of engaged and interested volunteers across the country who are interested in protecting and promoting wellness in their communities. They make for resilient communities when properly engaged and supervised. Would you believe me if I told you that we ship around 14,000 CERT basic training manuals per year? That's how many Americans go through this federally sponsored program. And it can make a difference when engaged, supervised, and involved in the communities by their professional sponsors. So if you've had good success with CERT or have heard of it and considered starting one or sponsoring a CERT program, it makes a difference, not just on gray sky days, but it builds resilience during blue sky days. It can serve communities of teenagers, workplaces, campuses, tribal CERTs. We offer free publications to help CERT go. So I invite you to visit ready.gov/CERT to learn more or contact us and find out all of the ways that CERT can help build communities that you may never have thought of. So You Are the Help Until Help Arrives is 5 simple steps that can be undertaken by almost anybody, regardless of ability, regardless of prior training, in order to keep persons alive until professional medical help arrives. Citizen responders are the first on the scene. They are the ones who dial 911, and they are the ones who can make a difference until professionals arrive. Not only do these 5 simple steps teach basic skills, but they are a great introductory community building program, and we highly recommend they be adopted as programming for organizations like CERT. But anybody can deliver them. Anybody who qualifies themselves as an instructor can deliver the training, which is available at ready.gov/until help arrives. And we invite you to check this great stuff out if you haven't. As a measure of success, since program was launched in early 2017, we estimate over 230,000 Americans have gone through and taken the classroom-based training. It takes about 2.5 hours, and most of them report as being more likely to help after they go through the training. Part of the intent is to instill the culture of preparedness where individuals feel that they can make a difference. And when people feel that they can make a difference, they're less likely to stand and record an accident on their iPhone. They may actually get involved, save that life, and make a difference. And they've taken a preparedness action, they're more likely to take other preparedness actions, they feel empowered, and we've started them down the path to success. Maybe this leads to CERT. Maybe this leads to another voluntary organization you've never thought of, but these programs make a difference and save lives. So thank you for your time, and now I would like to introduce Ali Carlock.
Great, thank you, Andy. Andy just shared with us a bunch of great examples of how we're getting citizens involved in becoming responders and helpers themselves. And now I'd like to shift our attention on how we are focusing our efforts and building our youth generation to make sure that they are included and involved in this part. Youth are approximately 25% of the population, but they are 100% of our future. And we want to be sure that when that terrible day happens, whether that's the next earthquake, school shooting, or hurricane, that we have the proper mechanisms in place to make sure that we help protect them and engage them and equip them with the appropriate skills to help themselves. So at ICPD, we elevate our youth programming through 3 ways: through our programs, our partnerships, and building a youth platform. And today I'd like to highlight some of those key resources and tools that I think you may be able to find most helpful to bring back to your communities. So as I talked about, one of our key elements is through our programming, and we have a number of different resources, educational resources that you can use and take back with you that may be helpful to educate children on the topic of youth preparedness. And one of them that we are very excited about is called Prepare with Pedro. This was a product that was developed in partnership with the American Red Cross, and it's a great activity book that you can take to community fairs or events or schools that is offered free of charge in FEMA's publication warehouse. And it's a great starting point to have conversations with younger children about how they can get prepared, what are the different hazards that they face, why this is important, and what are those protective actions that they can take to make sure that they stay safe. So we're really excited about Pedro. He has become one of the most requested publications in our warehouse. I know Andy thinks that search is probably the most exciting, but I would say that youth has become our #1 most requested resource. So we're excited about Pedro. We are also in the works of developing future materials that involve Pedro and hazard-specific storybooks. So look out for more great opportunities with Pedro in the future. And then another great resource that we are really excited about today is called Ready to Help. And this was actually a program developed after the program You Are the Help Until Help Arrives that Andy just talked about. And we were asking ourselves, what are we really doing for children? What are we doing to help them get the knowledge and the skill set to face an everyday emergency situation? So we're changing the conversation of what happens in a disaster to what happens in an everyday scenario. So if your kid is at a field trip and gets lost, what do they do? If grandma is babysitting and suddenly falls, does your child know what to do? So we took a different approach with this program, and it's a card game that teaches kids 5 simple steps to stay safe and to respond in an emergency. So that is stay safe, stay calm, get help, give info, and give care. And what's exciting about this is it's a card game, so it's fun, it's engaging, and the repetition helps students kind of remember that information. It's developed for ages 8 and up, but really this is a game that can be used in all ages. I use this with my kids in a matching and go fish game. So this is another exciting resource. Also at community fairs, it's a great giveaway and available from our FEMA publication warehouse. So make sure that you guys get your copy today. Another program we have is called Student Tools for Emergency Planning. This has been around for a number of years. It's used very heavily in a couple of our regions here in FEMA. It was developed most notably in Region 1 in Rhode Island, and this curriculum is geared towards 4th and 5th graders. This is a really great way to introduce students in the classroom to your basic disaster, what is a hazard, what is an emergency, kind of defining some of those first items. And we have a series of videos on YouTube. If you Google FEMA Disaster Dodgers on the YouTube website, you'll be able to find our videos that accompany these materials. So if folks aren't ready to do a full curriculum in their classroom, this is a great way to start a conversation based off of these videos. And this is, again, also available free of charge from FEMA's publication warehouse. Okay, Teen CERT. Andy mentioned the CERT program, and another way that we're engaging youth is to advocate for the implementation of teen certs across the country. This is a great way to get teens involved, and often when you get the teens involved, you're getting their parents involved as well, because they're dropping them off for the training. And we've actually heard from a number of our communities across the country that have teen certs that they've had a lot of success in deploying their teen certs, to activation sites. So there's a number of ways that youth can get involved and help out. They can get their volunteer hours or community service hours for school. So we've seen a number of really great ways that Teen CERT has come into play, not only in the classroom, but also out in their community. And we certainly can't do all this work on our own. We look to our partnerships to really elevate youth preparedness education. And FEMA has come together with the American Red Cross and Department of Education to form what we call the National Strategy for Youth Preparedness Education. It's a long name. But what it really is a group of over 66+ organizations that come together and highlight and elevate and move that needle on youth preparedness. And we bring our resources to the table, we collaborate. The group gets together quarterly in a virtual space and then gets together once a year in Washington, D.C. If anybody on the call today or the webinar today is interested in becoming an affirmer and coming to the table and learning more about youth preparedness and how we can really elevate this to the next level, I'd encourage you to reach out to us. We're always looking for new membership there. But this is really a great way that we can all come together, we can share our resources, and we can collaborate on some of these great projects. And then finally, we talked about our programs and our partnerships, and I'd be remiss if we didn't mention building a youth platform and how critical it is to involve youth at the table. There's the saying, nothing about them without them, and we can't talk about youth, we can't talk about educating youth if we aren't bringing them to the table and being a part of the conversation. And so FEMA has put together this National Youth Council. It's 15 members that come together from across the country, and they work together with FEMA staff and leadership to be creative and be innovative and think about projects that can really make an impact in their communities. We have seen over the past couple of years youth councils popping up all over the regions and in several states. And this is a really great way to get youth involved, expose them to the emergency management community, and have really large impacts in their community. We've seen some really great things from these youth members, and a lot of times when you're hearing this information at conferences or at events, it's a lot more impactful when it's coming from a youth than when it's coming from a government official. So I'd encourage you, if you have any teens that are interested in becoming involved in this field, the Youth Council is a great way to do so. We have them at the national level, and they are popping up at the regional and state level as well. I think that is the last slide that we have on our youth information. Again, everything you've seen here today is available free from FEMA's warehouse. So if you're interested in ordering copies of our coloring book or the card game or any of our curriculums, I'd encourage you to go onto our ready.gov website /youth preparedness and find a ton of different tools and resources there. I'd like to kick it over to Matt Lyttle at this point, who's going to be sharing more information on our capacity building, training, and some additional tools.
All right, thanks, Allie. Wow, what a speedy session we've been through so far. Hopefully you've gotten plenty of great tips, tools, resources, and research to help you further what you're doing in your community. Let's cap it off with a little bit more about capacity building and training. Here we have some information about the Ready Business program. You can find this at ready.gov/business. Many of you, I'm sure, are working with businesses of all sizes in your communities and many others like nonprofit organizations and faith communities and schools. Listen, everybody has business to conduct, and when a disaster disrupts that, it can influence a lot of people, whether that's students, customers, employees, suppliers, or others. So it's so incredibly important that we're preparing businesses for this stuff. If you need any more convincing than that, you can see that most small businesses won't reopen after a disaster. About 40% will not reopen immediately after a disaster. And 3 years after a disaster, if a business doesn't have a continuity plan, it will fail at a rate of 75%. That's not very good at all. So we've got to do more to be preparing our businesses. And this Ready Business website at that ready.gov/business will offer some toolkits that businesses can apply in their workplace. It also has some very short videos that you can share to get business leaders thinking about this kind of stuff, thinking about what systems they need to protect, how to prepare their staff, and even how to get better engaged in their community. So it's all there at ready.gov/business. And we've got them for these various hazards that you can see here: hurricane, inland flooding, earthquakes, and others. Great. We just finished a series that we're very, very excited about, and Allie is proud of Ready to Help. I know she is, but this life-saving skills series, I don't know, it may take the cake. We took a look at how we can communicate simple, life-saving messages to all Americans, and how we can reach people that might not typically be our front of mind customers for this sort of stuff. So we're talking about historically underserved populations, urban populations, and others who really need to get a lot of this information, but might not have the same access to it as our general population. So we have this series of 9 animations, 8 graphics, and all sorts of social media content that is available to be shared by you. You can visit ready.gov to find this, or you can just search on your favorite web search FEMA life-saving skills to see the entire series. But this is just one of those graphics that you'll find here. Oh, and I'm really, really happy to tell you that we have this content available in 5 languages. So English, Spanish, Chinese, both traditional and simplified, and Vietnamese. So this stuff can be reapplied as you see fit to reach all of the members of your community. Really good stuff. We've got to be preparing year-round for all of the hazards that our community faces. But sometimes when we need a boost, it's good to know that we can all focus our attention on one particular issue. That's why we have National Preparedness Month in September. Nisah talked about Financial Capability Month in April, and we certainly know the other times of the year where we can talk to these particular incidences. This seasonal calendar here is meant to help you align your messaging with FEMA. So if you visit ready.gov/calendar, you'll see this. And that way we can all be amplifying the same message at the same time, hopefully boosting our reach and getting more prepared Americans to take these critical preparedness actions. Of course, we're here in July. You can see that we're coming up on National Night Out, which I hope is a big thing in your community. It's a great way to connect first responders with residents. And then, of course, right around the corner, both literally on this calendar and also on the calendars in our phones and email, is September National Preparedness Month. So we hope you'll join with us in boosting preparedness around the country. All right, what you see here is the order form to get your hands on all of the great resources that we've been discussing, whether it's the Emergency Financial First Aid Kit that Nisah mentioned, some CERT materials that Andy brought up, or Allie's Youth Preparedness resources. You can get all of them for free, shipped to you, directly to your door, so that you can use them in your community. That's probably the biggest thing that we want you to leave with today is we're here to partner with you. We're doing the development on some great resources that you can simply reapply. So the next time you're thinking about how to spend those grant dollars on preparedness work, hop on over to the ready.gov website and see if we perchance have something that will plug in so that you can apply those resources elsewhere. There's some information here. If you have a recent FEMA publication somewhere in your office, you're also going to find that phone number, 800-480-2520, inside of that publication so that you can reorder as you need. Okay, so what's the point of all of this, right? The idea is to change outcomes. You heard Christi open with the stages of behavior change and the fact that we've got to move people from pre-contemplation, where preparedness isn't even on their radar, to actually taking action and then moving on to maintenance, where preparedness is part of an everyday life. That is a culture of preparedness, and we've all got to work together to make that happen. I hope, and I think the staff here hope, that some of the resources that we've shared today will give you a boost in reaching your entire community, your whole community, and helping build that culture of preparedness. Let's go ahead and start. I think we'll go to the next slide where we have our contact information. We'll put that up there. If you, for any reason whatsoever, need help from FEMA in helping prepare your community, please feel free to reach out to us at FEMA-prepare@fema.dhs.gov. We're ready to read and respond to your fan mail, and we're happy to find ways to collaborate together on this kind of content. So let's go ahead and flip to the questions piece. I think there's a slide for that, and we're going to take a look at what's been entered. There's still plenty of time to ask if you'd like. Let's go ahead and start with the earliest question. Does ICPD use state FIRA data to inform individual preparedness planning? Really good question, complex one. Glad we started with something easy. We do coordinate very closely with the division within FEMA that organizes the SPR and FIRA information. We have not applied it directly to our individual preparedness products because we're looking more at what causes changes in behavior on the individual level, but that certainly is another step that we'd like to look out for. I hope that was an okay response. Going on to the next one, it asks, has our definition of preparedness, of what it means to be prepared, changed over the years? It certainly has, and that's one of the biggest questions, right, is what is the outcome that we're after? Right now, the one that ICPD aims for is getting Americans to take 3 or more preparedness actions every year. And that's the slide that Christi had showed earlier. Christi, I'll kick it to you in case you'd like to add anything there. We're aiming for those 3 or more preparedness actions, and I think that pretty much sums up our definition of what it means to be prepared in America. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. We have those earlier slides where it shows 10% and the 46% as kind of the two key items. If you're kind of flipping back through the slide, there are 6 predominant actions that we look at to assess whether or not individuals are getting prepared. And those are, you know, participating in a drill, having a household plan, stocking supplies, attending a preparedness meeting, working with your neighbors or your community to create a plan, and seeking information. And we've really found that if individuals have taken one of those 6 actions or multiple of those 6 actions, they're truly on the path to preparedness.
Great, thank you for that input. I know I saw a question here later on that says, how do we access that research? Christi, while we still have you, how can people find the National Household Survey data in case they'd like to take a look at it themselves?
Sure, so the easiest way is actually just to go to ready.gov/research, and that will contain links for all of the different research that we do. Perfect.
Thank you so much. And I would ask that the listening public keep an eye out for the 2018 National Household Survey data, which we hope to release some point in the very near future. Okay, another question, are materials available in Spanish or other languages? I explained that some of the life-saving skills graphics are available in 5 languages. Carlock, how about youth materials? What languages can people expect to get youth materials in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So far, we have materials in both English and Spanish, and we are working on getting our products translated into 5 additional languages. I believe we'll have them in Chinese, both simplified and traditional. We have Korean, Vietnamese.
Wonderful. And you can also pick up your CERT curriculum in additional languages as well. And we would love to hear stories of success reaching alternate language communities in America with the CERT program and other resources. So that'll be great. We have a question about the slide talking about individual assistance and the fact that only about 1/3 have received that. And the question is that a historical trend? Was there ever information or percentages higher than that or lower? And I have to tell you, here on the preparedness side, we are not 100% plugged into the individual assistance program data. There is some publicly available that you can find through the FEMA website to learn more about that trend. The real important note is, and this, if a disaster happens in your community, I think this is important to highlight. If you've got community members that think they've been impacted, they should go ahead and register. And then we'll get to the bottom of whether or not the individual assistance is fully required for their home. But we don't want folks waiting. If they've been impacted, they should get registered so they can get the right federal assistance that makes sense for them. Okay, Allie, another question here for you. How representative is the Youth Preparedness Council of the populations and communities that are among the hardest hit in America?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have representatives from all of our 10 FEMA regions. We have about 15 council members on the National Council. Specifically, the members apply through a competitive process, and then they are representatives of their states within their region and on a national level. We also have regional councils and state councils. So while we don't have a specific number on the breakdown of coverage by, what was the question?
By hardest hit communities.
By hardest hit communities, we definitely have representation. Several of our members have been survivors of recent disasters. So we try to make sure that we have a diverse, both geographically representative of council members.
Great, thanks, Allie. Now there's a question here about CERT or economics programming for elementary and middle school students, and I would 100% send you to the Youth Preparedness website to get a look at the STEP, Student Tools for Emergency Planning curriculum, as well as Ready to Help and other resources. Allie, what is the website again for Youth Preparedness resources?
Right now, you can get all of these great resources on ready.gov/youth preparedness, and I'll give you a little teaser right now that we are working on a brand new website that will take all of FEMA's great youth resources into one comprehensive site. So in the future, you will be able to find all of our new latest and greatest tools and resources on ready.gov/kids. That will not be up until September, but that's a little sneak peek for some great things that are coming in the future.
Great, thanks, Allie. Keep it in the family, everybody, but we can't wait to share that with you as soon as it's ready to be released. Andy, we have a twofer for you related to CERT. First, do CERT teams have to be sponsored by a first responder agency? And second, when will the update to CERT be released?
Thanks, Matt. So the answer to the first question, do they have to be sponsored by a first responder agency? The answer is no. A CERT program can be sponsored by a local government organization, as long as it is an official recognized government organization. That could be also a public official, that could be the mayor or the office of the mayor, city council, county council, office of emergency management, office of maybe public health, or the traditional ones you may think of such as fire or police. So there are a lot of potential sponsors that could serve to sponsor and sponsor well a CERT program. Those could also be in other communities, such as in high schools. The faculty or staff could sponsor a teen CERT program, Department of Campus Safety on university campuses. Those could also be the administration, the dean. There's a lot of flexibility built in. And then finally, in tribal communities, that could very well be Department of Public Safety, law enforcement, or council, or some sort of body in that community. As far as the CERT curriculum, we are wrapping up our final preparations for publication and translation, and it will be out very soon. We will be publicizing that when we get it out the door.
Hopefully everybody has signed up for the ICPD newsletter and following ready.gov online, whether that's on Facebook or Twitter or elsewhere, and you can see exactly when those come out. Thanks for the updates, Andy. Question, can we go ahead and place orders for these products from the warehouse? Yeah, do it. Go ahead and order. We can't wait to see it come through, and we will ship those out to you as soon as we can. Next question also has to do with that some items are on back order. Yes, we are thrilled at all of the interest in our youth resources, specifically Pedro and Ready to Help card game. So we are just trying to sort out our pipeline to make sure that it is wide enough to reach all of the interest that's there. So we're doing some extra printing, we're boosting our budget, and we're trying to make sure that we can do that appropriately. So please go ahead and continue to place orders, and we'll make sure they get fulfilled as soon as the quantities are back in stock. You are correct, there's a question here about restrictions on quantities in the past. We do have some restrictions on quantities, but for the most part, we will work with you to make sure that you get what you need when you need it, so that you can get these resources out the door. If you go ahead and send us an email at that website that was up earlier, or excuse me, the address that was up earlier, FEMA-prepare@fema.dhs.gov, we will work with you to get those resources to you. There's a question here about the differences between Teen CERT and the MyPI program, which utilizes the CERT program in its curriculum. Allie, can you answer that for us briefly?
Yeah, MyPI is actually one of our national strategy affirmers. They're a great partner of ours, and they've taken the Teen CERT program that both Andy and I talked about earlier, and they've really amplified it. So the difference there is MyPI is about a 5 to 10 week program where a regular CERT training starts with about 40 hours, and the MyPI builds off of that. So this is adding on additional skill sets, leadership development, disaster psychology. It's adding on a number of different components to make the training a little bit more robust. So MyPI is a great program. It's available in 27 different states. And if you guys are not plugged into Dr. Akers, I would suggest you do so. It's a really great program to engage your youth.
Okay, great question, and thanks for the answer, Allie. Are the materials shared here cleared to share with others? And 100%, we hope you will, whether it's these slides or the downloadable content in the file share or what you find on ready.gov, please use these widely as much as you can. We want to see them out there. That's what we're here for. The next question says, can you put local contact information on the life-saving skills graphics? Yes, 100%. You can even broadcast these on TV. Thanks for the question, Tracy Friend. That is 100% what you can do with those. We would love it if you could keep both the life preserver on the bottom left corner and the ready.gov logo on the right corner for us. We're doing some digital tracking with those to see how far and wide they go, but feel free to add your logo around the outside or on the bottom in an unused area. That's certainly 100% okay with us, and we'd love to collaborate with you on that. Limit and frequency to ordering materials. Again, we'll work with you to make sure you get what you need when you need it. We do have some order limits just to make sure that we can spread out as much of this content as possible at any given time. Let's see, I'm going to read this one straight from the board here. The 75% with regard to returning businesses that can wipe out a community for the long term. Minority businesses are already struggling pre and post. Even worse, what is there and to do and to what extent that their special needs are addressed. This is so incredibly important, and I have to tell you, small businesses in particular suffer greatly during disasters. They're dealing with day-to-day emergencies in supply chain, in customers, in access to capital and banking services, so it's even harder when a disaster rolls through. And I hope that Ready Business Workshop is a way to address some of the businesses in your community. We can also talk about some other tools and resources that may be out soon to help do so. And I would encourage you to take a look at what the Small Business Administration has available in a similar area. Are there any multimedia applications under development for youth? We do have some videos available on the FEMA YouTube page or on some of these specific pages we've talked about. We don't have any plans for an app or some other a technological or electronic tool for these folks. The question about stock in the warehouse, again, I know it's trouble. We're doing the best we can to make sure that these are there for you to use in your community. So apologies for the delay about that. If you'd like to get a copy of the slides, you can also email us about that or download from the file share, the one pager that gives you some more information about us. Happy to share. Next question says, when will the new September National Preparedness Month materials be available, and what is this year's theme? We are working very, very hard on getting those out. We hear from the community every year that they need it long before our National Preparedness Month. We're probably already behind the 8 ball on that, so apologies. There's a lot of coordination that has to happen within the federal interagency to decide on the themes and the messages. That's not an excuse, but hopefully it helps understand why it takes us a while to get them out. Apologies. All right. Can FEMA combine with local YMCAs to expand to head trauma safety when it comes to transportation via bikes, motorcycle, and walking? I'm going to toss this one to Andy Burrows. What can people do with YMCA or others, both in emergency settings and non-emergency settings?
So the best thing I could recommend would be that if you want to set people down the path to remaining safety, give them the Until Help Arise program. Those 5 simple steps can help keep folks safe. We don't necessarily have anything specific about headgear or helmets at this time, but we can address being prepared for accidents as they happen, whatever the cause may be.
Okay, great tip. And what's the website for Until Help Arise?
Ready.gov/UntilHelpArrives. That's ready.gov/UntilHelpArrives. That's ready.gov/UntilHelpArrives.
Thank you very much. Okay, Allie, what about youth outreach specifically for college or university? Do we have anything in particular that might work in that arena?
Yeah, absolutely. If you, again, our favorite website, ready.gov, if you visit the ready.gov/ I believe it's Ready Campus, you'll find a number of different tools and resources there. Ready Campus is a program that we've developed, actually was developed out of one of our regions to provide students with preparedness messaging and opportunities to practice and get involved in their emergency safety and preparedness on campus. So that's a great tool and resource that I'd encourage folks to check out.
Wonderful, thank you. There's a question here about older Americans and efforts to involve those folks in groups like AARP. I will tell you, AARP is one of FEMA's greatest and strongest national partners. We work very closely throughout the year to make sure that emergency content is available to people and older Americans, and then also that we've got preparedness programs in place. So something like CERT is perfectly appropriate for older Americans, and a lot of the messages and things that are used here are also appropriate. If you would like to better connect with AARP and you're having trouble doing so, feel free to reach out to us, and perhaps through the national office, we can get you the right contact in your area. There is a question here, Andy. It's a tough one. It's for you. We're almost out of time, so if you can give us the 10-second review of this. What's going on with the CERT Association?
The CERT Association is getting up and running. If you haven't heard, there is a National CERT Association being formed by the CERT community. It'll be a national nonprofit that will benefit CERT at large throughout the United States. If you are interested in more information in the association or want to contact them to get involved, everyone, the entire CERT community is invited to be a part of this as it forms. Please visit nationalcert.org, www.nationalcert.org. The website is under construction, but there is a means of contacting the initial board and officers that have been elected. So anyone is welcome. We invite all folks. FEMA is supportive of this, but it will be a private organization outside of the government. Please do visit that website, make your voice heard, get involved. They welcome all comers.
Okay, folks, we're almost out of time. There is one more note here worth sharing, and that is that much of the content we talked about today is available online and for download. So you can download your own Pedro, you can download your own Ready to Help, your own Emergency Financial First Aid Kit, even your own CERT curriculum right from the ready.gov website if you don't want to wait for those orders to show up. So again, thanks very much. Karen, let's turn it back to you for this polling.
Thank you very much, Matt. Thank you to all the presenters and to all of you for being with us today. If you're interested in learning more about NEMA, please visit our website, www.nemaweb.org. Thank you again to everyone, and please enjoy the rest of your day.